As a next component to migrate, I'll tackle a big one, userList.view. This component contains a lot of logic. This is actually the component I used as an example of seeing logic that is scattered out across options. So now we finally can hopefully see how we can keep the logic in one place with the composition API. So here in the userList.view file, again, I'll start by adding the setup method. And I also want to make it clear that we leave components and props untouched. These options still exist. They are not replaced by the composition API. They still work as you learned it. We still tell Vue which local components we want to use in this component, and we still inform Vue about the props this component receives. So that stays where it is. But of course, I am going to replace my data here. So instead of setup, I now got 3 pieces of data which I want to manage. And all 3 pieces of data should be reactive. They can change, and Vue should be able to notice these changes. And again, it's up to you whether you want to use an object or refs, or maybe group these search things into an object and use a ref for sorting. Totally up to you. I will go for refs here again because I like the simplicity refs offer us. So here I'll simply import the ref function from Vue, and then in setup I got 3 refs I want to create. And I'll keep the names we have down there. So the entered search term is a ref where the initial value is an empty string. The active search term is a ref that initially is an empty string or that holds an empty string. And sorting is a ref which initially holds null as a value. So now these are our 3 pieces of data. And now I'll do one thing already which we can't do with the options API. I'll split the place where I define the data, because I now want to put all the other search related things, functions and so on, directly below these refs here, and put all the sorting related logic below this ref, so that we have search logic first and then sorting logic, so that we don't have this splitting of logic across different places, so that now we can keep the things that belong together. Anyways, we can get rid of data, and again, you can remove it or comment it out. And here I'll comment it out for now, so that we still see where we're coming from, and so that we later can see the difference between composition API and options API. And we can continue with computed. Here we got the available users, where in the end I'm checking my active search term to filter down the users based on the search term. And displayed users is another computed property which deals with sorting. So here we got 2 different pieces of logic, search and sorting. Anyways, we got computed properties, and therefore we should import computed from Vue, because that is our composition API equivalent to the computed option. And then let's start with the computed property for search. So we can call computed here, and then pass in a function like this, where I now want to compute, well, my available users. And we can copy the logic from the computed property down there. Copy it in here, but now of course it's not this active search term, but active search term.value. Because active search term is a ref, and you learned we need to access the value property to read the value. It also will not be this users, but well, where are users coming from? What is users here? This users. Well, that's our props. In the options API, we can refer to props with the this keyword. This and then the prop name. And users is a prop. In the setup method, you learned the this keyword is undefined, so that won't work. How can we get access to props there? Well, you might remember the setup method gets 2 parameters which you can accept and which you can work with. It gets them always automatically by Vue, and here the first parameter is the one that helps us. This is an object full of the props this component receives. So in this case, this will have a users key. So here we can set props.users instead of this.users. We do this in all the places where we access this.users here. And here again, instead of this active search term, it's active search term dot value. And that's now the migrated computed property code. Now I will name my computed property available users because that is the name we also used here in the options API. But with that, we migrated this computed property over. Now let's work on the other computed property. And for that, I can already copy the code we have in there in displayed users. So copy that code. But since it is related to sorting, I will now put this here below my sorting ref. Again, so that I keep all the search logic together in one place and then the sorting logic together in one place. That is one of the key advantages the composition API can offer us. So here I have my displayed users where I use computed, and I have my function here. Copy in the code, and in here I'm referring to this sorting. Well, that is now my sorting ref here. So instead of this sorting, it's sorting.value. This available users won't work because available users is my computed property from up there. And computed properties, as you also learned in this module, are also just refs, read-only refs. And therefore, you also access .value there. And of course, not just there, but also here. I'm calling slice, by the way, here to create a copy first of this array, because otherwise I also sort the existing array, which I don't want to do. I want to return a new sorted array. Here it's again sorting.value, and then here in all these places it's sorting.value. Like that. With that, we migrated our displayed users. So we can comment out the entire computed property block now. Let me do this here and move on to the methods. Here we got a method related to search and one related to sorting. And in update search, I just update my entered search term. I'm just going to copy this entire method, and go up to my search functionality, maybe here below the computed property, and add a function. And then copy in that name, update search, where I get a value. And now, of course, it's not this entered search term, but entered search term dot value, which is equal to the val chosen by the user. And with that, we can move on to the sort method here and already comment out methods, I guess, and bring that sort method below our sorting logic here in the setup method. So that would be here. There, I now add a new function sort, where I set sorting.value equal to mode, referring to my sorting ref. And with that, we migrated methods. Now we got a watcher. This watcher is basically here to not update the search logic on every keystroke, but add a slight delay, and only if what the user entered didn't change for a period of 300 milliseconds, only then I want to take this as a new search term. That's the logic I have here in the end. So therefore, I'll copy this logic I have in the watcher, and then comment out this watcher. And now, since I want to add a watcher related to search, I first of all import watch from view, and then maybe here below the computed property, we can call watch, and as a second argument, pass in a function which holds that code I just copied from the options API watcher, and of course set the dependency of the watcher, which is the entered search term. So point at entered search term here to make it clear to view that this function should run whenever the entered search term changes. Here we then get our new value, and the new value is then compared to the value we currently have in entered search term dot value. And I want to set active search term dot value equal to new value if we don't have a difference here. So if the user didn't change the input for a period of 300 milliseconds. Now with that, I migrated all the logic. Now it is time to expose the things that we need in the template to the template. So at the end of this setup function, we now will add our returned object and now return all the things that should be available to the template. And that's, for example, the entered search term. We're using it here. We will also need the update search function, as we can see here. We need the sorting ref, as we can see, we're using it here. We need the sort function, which we can see here. We need the displayed users. And that should be it. And I even noticed a slight glitch here. I'm emitting a custom event here. Of course, we should add emits here. And that should have been added before with the options API as well. Well, I just noticed it, so to follow all best practices here, let's add list projects as an emitted event here. But that's just a side note, should have been added before. Now let's expose what we need. And that was the entered search term, the displayed users, the update search function, the sorting ref and the sort function, and I think that should be it. So, sorting and sort, and I'm getting an error. Available user is assigned a value. Looks like I have a typo. This should be available users here, the name of my computed property. With that, it compiles, and if I reload, this is looking good. Let me open the DevTools to see if we got any errors here. And sorting seems to work. Searching also works. And selecting a user also seems to do the trick here. So it looks like the app works as before. And with that, we migrated the userList.view file from the options API, which you can still see down there, to the composition API. And of course, that's still a lot of code. I mean, the amount of logic didn't really change. But one advantage, a possible advantage, is that now all the search functionality is in one block, and all the sorting functionality is in one block of code. And that can make managing components like this easier, since you don't have to scroll as much. If I need to change something related to search, it's all in that area, not somewhere down the component. Now, of course, that might or might not matter to you, but it can be an advantage in bigger components.